Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Noufele podcast, where we talk about anything such as finance, integration in the US, immigration, and anything between. So, if you're here for the first time, please do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Subscribe, like, and share so that our video can reach more people. So, today we are going to talk about a topic on immigration, a topic that I think is very important, that I think it touches a lot of people in our community, a lot of people in African diaspora, any immigrant. So please, before we do that, I want to mention that everything I'm going to discuss here today with my co-host Claude is just for information purpose only. So we are not immigration lawyer. We are not trying to give you legal advice. So if you need help, please consult an immigration lawyer, consult someone that's qualified to provide legal advice. So please consult the licensed immigration attorney. So everything that we are going to discuss here, me and Claude, is just for information, educational purpose only. So, like I said, this is a very important topic right now because on Friday, May 22nd, the Trump administration released something that's going to impact a lot of people in the immigration, on their immigration journey. So, including, like I said, people in my community. So, and then today I'm going to bring Claude, and then we are going to try to give you as much information as possible. We are going to try to, actually give you the fact, and then talk about different aspects on this topic that I think is going to affect a lot of people when it comes to the adjustment of status of getting the green card in the United States. So let's get right into it. I'm gonna bring Claude so that we can go ahead and get started. Okay, Claude, we are live, and then before we go ahead and get started on what actually changed in the green card process, can you explain the green card process before this announcement? Because a lot of people, I think, in my community might not even know like the term of adjustment status. Can you explain the term adjustment status, everything that was in place before this announcement?
Absolutely, Emmanuel. Great question. So let me break this down simply because this is actually the foundation for understanding why Friday's announcement is so significant. Before May 22nd, here's how it worked. For over 50 years, if you came to America on a temporary visa, student visa, work visa, tourist visa, and you wanted to become a permanent resident, you had two paths. Path 1, adjustment of status, AOS. You stay in America, you file your paperwork with USCIS right here in the US. You go through interviews, medical exams, background checks, all while you're living your life, working your job, being with your family. Your visa doesn't expire because you're in the process. Once approved, you get your green card without ever leaving the country. Path 2, consular processing. You go back to your home country. You apply at the U.S. Embassy or consulate there. You wait for interviews and approval. Then you come back to America with your green card. The reality before Friday. Most people, especially family-based applicants, workers on H-1B, students, were using Path 1, adjustment of status. Why? Because it was faster, it kept families together, and it made sense. A Cameroonian student who graduated, got a job, married an American, she didn't have to leave America and go back to Cameroon to apply. She could do everything from here. Why this mattered for your community? This was the pathway that made the American dream accessible to immigrants. You came legally, built your life, and then formalized your status without losing everything you built. That was the system until Friday.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense because I think that was a process that most African and Cameroonian, immigrant in America rely on. So people who come here on a student visa, they got a job, they got married, they built their life here, and then they were doing this, inside of United States.
Exactly. You nailed it, Emmanuel. That's the reality. A Cameroonian comes here on an F1 student visa, graduates, gets a job, maybe marries someone, American or fellow immigrant, builds a life, a community, maybe has kids in school. An adjustment of status is what allowed them to say, okay, now I'm ready to be permanent here without having to uproot everything and go back to Cameroon. And that's what made it work for our community specifically, because we understand the value of being present, being consistent, building roots. You don't abandon your job, your family, your stability to go sit in Cameroon for months waiting for approval. But here's the thing, that's exactly what Friday's announcement is saying you have to do now. And that's where it gets serious for hundreds of thousands of people who are mid-process right now. Should we get into what actually changed?
Yes, Claude. What did the Trump administration actually announce on May 22nd? Can you break that down for us, please?
Absolutely. Let me break this down in 3 layers so you see what actually happened. Layer 1, the headline, what you saw on CNN. On May 22nd, USCIS announced a new policy memo saying that adjustment of status, applying for a green card from inside America, will now only be granted in extraordinary circumstances. The official statement said, from now on, an alien who is in the U.S. temporarily and wants a green card must return to their home country to apply, except in extraordinary circumstances. That's the headline. That's what scared hundreds of thousands of people. Layer 2, what actually happened, the nuance. Here's where it gets important. Emmanuel, the actual policy memo is more complicated than the headline. The memo doesn't say adjustment of status is banned. It says USCIS officers need to treat it as discretionary relief, meaning they have to look at each case individually and decide if it's appropriate. The memo acknowledges exceptions. Specifically, it says certain visa categories like H-1B and L-1 workers have what's called dual intent. That means you can legally hold a temporary work visa and pursue a green card at the same time. Those people may not be as heavily impacted. It also says if adjustment of status is the only pathway available to someone, certain family situations, for example, that factors into the decision. Layer 3, what it means in practice. This is the real story, Emmanuel. Before Friday, USCIS officers were saying yes to most adjustment of status applications if the paperwork was correct. After Friday, USCIS officers are now supposed to ask, should we say yes to this? Looking at factors like whether you followed all the rules, your ties to America, whether you have family here, whether leaving would cause hardship. So it's not a ban. It's a shift from presumed approval to case-by-case discretion. The problem? Extraordinary circumstances is still undefined. No one knows exactly what qualifies. And that uncertainty is what's creating panic right now. The dangerous part, the political message being sent is we don't want you doing adjustment of status. Even if some people can still get approved, the bureaucratic environment has shifted to making it harder, slower, and more uncertain. That's the real impact.
Yes, that was actually one of the questions I have. What do they mean by extraordinary circumstances?
Perfect question, Emmanuel. This is where the confusion starts for everyone, including immigration lawyers. Extraordinary circumstances. Nobody actually knows what it means. That's the real problem. The memo doesn't define it. USCIS didn't give examples. They just said officers should consider all relevant factors on a case-by-case basis. So right now, each USCIS officer can interpret it differently. One officer in Chicago might say, married to a US citizen equal extraordinary. Another officer in Atlanta might say, that's not extraordinary enough. What lawyers are guessing it might include: married to a US citizen, strong case, but not guaranteed. US citizen children who would suffer hardship if a parent leaves, medical emergencies, or serious illness. Situations where going back to your home country is genuinely dangerous. Cases where consular processing is literally impossible, like if your country doesn't have a US embassy. But again, these are educated guesses. Nobody has the official list. Why this is so dangerous. Someone could spend $5,000 on a lawyer, file their adjustment of status application, and get denied because their officer decided their situation didn't meet extraordinary circumstances. And they have no clear reason why. That's what's terrifying people right now. It's not clarity, it's uncertainty. And uncertainty in immigration matters can cost you everything.
Okay, yes, because what I'm reading on the headline is something different. Something like people who want to apply for green card need to go back to their home country, and then when you hear some lawyer, it's also something another. It's also another story. So there's really not like. I feel like there's misinformation about this. I don't know if it can be clear on what the actual memo, means.
You're absolutely right, Emmanuel. There is massive misinformation right now, and I'm going to be direct about why. The headline says, everyone must leave and apply from home. The actual memo says, we're making this discretionary case by case. These are not the same thing. Here's what happened. The Trump administration released a political statement for media consumption. It was intentionally strong and dramatic, must return to their home country to send a message. But the actual legal memo they sent to USCIS officers is more nuanced. It doesn't say ban adjustment of status. It says treat it as discretionary. Why the difference? Politics and law are different things. The political message is for voters. The legal memo is what actually governs how officers process cases. The truth nobody is saying clearly: adjustment of status is not banned, but it's now much harder to get approved. Officers are being told to be skeptical instead of helpful. That's the real change. So someone can still apply and get approved, but the odds are worse. The timeline is longer. The uncertainty is real. That's the honest middle ground that nobody is talking about on the news. Does that clear it up?
Yeah, that definitely cleared up. What does this mean practically? So, for example, for someone who right now is in the middle of the green card process, what does this mean for them?
Great question. This is the one that matters most right now because thousands of people are in this exact situation. If you already filed your I-485 adjustment of status application before May 22nd, you're in a gray area. The memo doesn't say what happens to pending cases. Some lawyers think you might be grandfathered in, meaning the old rules apply to you. Other lawyers say USCIS could reopen your case and apply the new standard. Honestly, nobody knows yet. This is going to be decided in court, probably. What should you do? Do not withdraw your application. Do not leave the country. Keep your status valid. Get a lawyer immediately if you don't have one. If you're thinking about filing but haven't yet, this is where it gets real. You now have to ask yourself, do I qualify for extraordinary circumstances? If you're not sure, you need a lawyer to assess your case before you file, because filing and getting denied is worse than not filing. The practical impact right now. People mid-process are panicking. Some are considering leaving the country early, thinking it will help. Don't. Others are thinking about withdrawing and trying consular processing instead. That might actually be smarter in some cases, but you need legal advice first. The worst thing you can do is make a big decision based on panic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So now I want to talk about like let's get a little bit specific here. Like, what can you walk me through who like are going to be affected the most by this? So can you explain who are going to be like hit like the hardest? You can explain by visa type, because our audience is on different visa and they need to know exactly where they stand. So can you break down who are going to be the most affected by this based on visa type, and then yeah, and we can go from there.
Absolutely. Let me break this down by visa type so people know exactly where they stand. F1 students hit the hardest. F1 visas don't have dual intent. That means you're supposed to intend to go back home after graduation. If you want to stay and get a green card, you're technically going against the purpose of your visa. Under this new policy, USCIS officers will scrutinize that heavily. F1 students who graduated, got jobs, want green cards, they're now the most vulnerable. Many will be told you need to go back to your home country and apply through consular processing. H-1B workers, better positioned in H-1B, has dual intent built in. That means the law already says you can work temporarily and pursue permanent residency at the same time. So H-1B workers have legal cover. They're still affected, but not as devastated as F1 students. Officers still have discretion, but dual intent gives them a stronger argument. L1 intercompany transfers, similar to H-1B, also have dual intent, also more protected than F1. B2 tourists and visitors, worst case. If you came as a tourist and want a green card, you're in trouble. You came with zero intent to immigrate. That's the opposite of what officers are now looking for. Consular processing is basically your only option. Pending I-485 cases, the gray zone. If you filed before May 22nd, you're waiting to see how courts rule. Don't panic, don't withdraw, just wait and get legal advice. Family-based, spouse of U.S. citizen, still strongest. If you're married to a U.S. citizen, you have the strongest case for extraordinary circumstances. U.S. law prioritizes keeping families together, but even this is now discretionary, not automatic. The bottom line, Emmanuel, F1 students and people on non-dual intent visas got hit hardest. H-1B and L1 workers have more protection. And if you're married to a U.S. citizen, you still have the best shot. But nothing is guaranteed anymore.
Okay, that definitely makes sense. So if I understand well, F1 student, are going to be affected the most, and also people who come here on the tourist visa are also going to be affected the most. So for the F1 student, for example, if a student got here, finish the school, graduated from college, what happens if they get a job and then the company is willing to sponsor for them to get a green card? Does that make a little bit of difference?
Great question, Emmanuel. Yes, it makes a difference, but maybe not as much as you'd hope. Here's the situation. F1 student graduates, gets a job, employer wants to sponsor them for a green card. That's actually a strong case legally. The employer is saying, we want this person permanently. That's concrete. But under the new policy, The USCIS officer will still ask, "Did you intend to stay when you came here on the F1 visa?" If the answer is yes, that works against you. If you can show you genuinely intended to go back but change your mind after graduation because of genuine circumstances, that's stronger. The reality? An employer sponsorship definitely helps. It's not nothing. But it doesn't automatically mean approval anymore. Before Friday, it was basically rubber stamped. Now it's discretionary. The officer could say, "Employer wants you, but you violated the terms of your visa by intending to stay from the beginning." That's the new risk. What this means: F1 students are now in a position where they might have to go back to Cameroon, apply through consular processing, and then come back, even with employer sponsorship. It's slower, it's expensive, and it separates families. That's the shift.
Okay, so for the tourist visa, that's actually the worst. Like if someone come here with a tourist visa, it's going to be tough for them to adjust their status if they want a green card, and then if they overstay the visa. So that's actually one of the worst case.
Exactly right, Emmanuel. You nailed it. B2 tourist visas, absolute worst case. B2 is literally a tourist visa. You're supposed to come, visit, and leave. There's zero dual intent. If you come on a B2 and then try to adjust status to a green card, you're openly saying, "I lied about my intentions when I entered." USCIS will deny you almost every time now. Before this policy, some people could still get approved if they could show a legitimate change in circumstances. Now, forget it. Officers are told to deny these cases, overstaying your visa. Even worse, if you overstayed a B2 or any visa, you've already violated immigration law. Now you're trying to adjust status? That's nearly impossible. USCIS will look at that and say you didn't follow the rules. Extraordinary circumstances don't apply. The danger here: if you overstay and then try to leave to do consular processing, you trigger a 3-year or 10-year re-entry ban, depending on how long you overstayed. So you're trapped. You can't stay legally. You can't leave without penalties. That's the real nightmare scenario. Bottom line: B2 tourists and people who overstayed are in the hardest position right now. They almost certainly need to leave and do consular processing, but that comes with serious consequences.
Okay. Oh, that's very interesting, and that makes sense because I've been reading headline where it said like people seeking green card should leave the U.S. And then also I've been reading some immigration lawyers, they are saying something different. So I think there's really the nuance between there's really a nuance that nobody is talking about. So what's actually the nuance here, if you don't mind?
Perfect question, Emmanuel. Yet this is exactly where the real story is. The headline: what Trump administration wants you to hear. Green card seekers must leave the U.S. and apply from their home country. That's the political message. It's dramatic, it's clear, it's designed to sound like a ban. The actual memo: what immigration lawyers are reading. The memo says adjustment of status is now discretionary, case by case. It doesn't say everyone must leave. It says officers should carefully evaluate whether this person warrants this extraordinary relief. Huge difference. Here's the nuance nobody is talking about. The administration wants to discourage adjustment of status without technically banning it. Why? Because a complete ban would get challenged in court immediately and probably lose. But if you make it discretionary and extraordinary, you achieve the same result without the legal liability. People get scared. Most don't even try. The ones who do try face uncertainty and delays. Result: fewer adjustments happen. What lawyers are saying: this isn't a ban, it's a pressure campaign dressed up as policy. The political statement ban language. The actual policy memo, discretionary language. They're intentionally different. And that gap, that's where the confusion and misinformation lies. The Trump administration knew exactly what they were doing.
Okay, that's interesting, Claude. So, I mean, the memo doesn't say that the adjustment of status is banned. The memo just said that it's discretionary now, to the immigration officer to make a decision based on extraordinary circumstances. Actually makes sense. The Trump administration is trying to discourage people to come here and legally on the F1 visa or the tourist visa, and then illegally stay here by overstaying the visa, or they intend to stay in the United States. So, okay, let's talk about what people should do right now. Let's say like someone is in the middle of the green card application process. What should they do right now? Should they withdraw the case? Should they get an immigration lawyer? So what are the exact steps they should take immediately right now?
Excellent question, Emmanuel. Let me give you 5 concrete steps in order of priority. Step 1, do not panic and do not leave the country. This is the most important one. People are hearing this news and thinking, I should go back home before things get worse. Wrong. Leaving the US right now could trigger a 3-year or 10-year re-entry bar depending on how long you overstayed. You could lock yourself out of America. Stay put. Keep your status valid. Step 2, get an immigration lawyer immediately. Not a notary, not your friend's cousin, a licensed immigration attorney who specializes in adjustment of status. This is not the time to DIY. If you're mid-process, a lawyer costs money now, but saves you thousands and your future later. Consultation is usually $200, $500. Do it. Step 3, do not withdraw your pending I-485 application without legal advice. Some people are panicking and withdrawing. That's a mistake. Your lawyer needs to assess whether you have a strong case under the new standard before you give up. Step 4, gather your documentation now. Employment letters, marriage certificates, U.S. ties, community involvement, hardship letters, if applicable. Build your case file showing why you deserve approval under extraordinary circumstances. Do this while you're waiting. Step 5, understand your visa category and dual intent status. If you're H-1B or L-1, you have more protection. If you're F-1 or B-2, you need a different strategy. Know where you stand. Your lawyer will explain this. The bottom line, get professional help today, not next week. Today.
Okay, Claude, what is the most dangerous mistake someone could do right now based on this news?
The single most dangerous mistake? Leaving the United States. Here's why this destroys people. If you're on an F1 student visa or any temporary visa, and you've been in the US longer than your authorized stay, even by a few days, and you leave right now, you trigger what's called accrual of unlawful presence. The consequences: 3-year bar. If you accrued more than 180 days of unlawful presence, you get a 3-year ban from re-entering the US. 10-year bar. If you accrued more than 1 year of unlawful presence, you get a 10-year ban. You could literally lock yourself out of America for a decade. The second most dangerous mistake: withdrawing your pending I-485 application in panic and trying consular processing instead. Once you withdraw, you lose your place in line. Consular processing takes longer, and now you're going back to your home country to apply, which is exactly what the administration wants. The third dangerous mistake: listening to rumors instead of lawyers. Everybody has an opinion right now. Your uncle, your friend, the internet, but only a lawyer who knows your specific case can tell you what to actually do. My message to your community: do not panic, but do not ignore this. This is the time to be informed, organized, and get professional help.
Okay, Claude, I want to step back a little bit and I ask a bigger question. So my question is, what the Trump administration, is is actually trying to achieve with this policy? What is the goal? What do they have in mind to accomplish with this policy?
Question, Emmanuel. Let me be direct about what's. They say they're returning to the original intent of the law and closing loopholes. That's the official language. The real goal: control immigration narrative and reduce the number of people becoming permanent residents without technically banning legal immigration. Here's why that matters. If they outright banned adjustment of status, they'd lose in court immediately. Congress created this process. It's law. You can't just eliminate it. But if you make it discretionary and extraordinary, you achieve the same results. Fewer people adjust status. Great, while staying technically legal. The bigger picture. This administration once questioned Emmanuel. Let me be direct about what's actually happening here. The stated goal: to reduce overall immigration, not just illegal immigration, all immigration. They're using policy what they say publicly. We're returning to the original to make legal pathways harder, slower, and more uncertain. Why intent of the law? Temporary visas should be temporary. People shouldn't target adjustment of status specifically. Because it's the most common pathway. Over 50% of all GreenIT use them as a stepping stone to permanent residency. That's the official story. The actual goal: cards in America come through adjustment of status. Hit that and you've hit what the policy does. Reduce legal immigration without technically the whole system. The message being sent: we don't want you staying here, we want you going banning it. Here's why that matters: a back to your home country to apply. That separates families. It costs complete ban on adjustment of status would get challenged in court and probably lose court's money. It takes years. It discourages people from even trying. That's the actual goal. Have said for decades that adjustment of status is legal. So instead, it's not about closing loopholes. It's about making legal immigration harder. And the administration makes it discretionary and scary. Same result, different method. Fewer people adjust. More people either leave or never come in the first place. The bigger picture. This is part of a larger immigration strategy. Make legal immigration harder, slower, more expensive, more uncertain. H-1B visas, student visas, family sponsorships, all getting tighter. The message being sent is America is closed for legal immigrants. Who this really affects: not rich people with expensive lawyers, not people with connections, regular people, African immigrants, Cameroonians, people who played by the rules, came legally, built lives, and now the rules changed mid-game. That's what's actually happening here.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And then, yeah, that's why I wanted to, to have this like quick podcast to talk about this because I think there are misinformation about this news out there. I think most of the people are thinking that, you should leave the United States to go back home to if you want to apply for a green card. I think the Trump administration, based on what I just learned with the research for this podcast and what you just said, it's like they're not banning the adjustment of status. They're just making more difficult, more discretionary to an immigrant officer to make a decision based on extraordinary circumstances. So, like you said, people should not like be scared. People should not leave the country, but people should at least definitely get an immigration lawyer to talk about their cases based on their situation. But of course, we should not encourage like illegal immigration. But yeah, I just wanted to really know what what actually the memo on this, who are going to be really affected, and what people should do, to make sure that they're not in trouble.
You said it perfectly, Emmanuel. That's exactly why this episode matters. The misinformation is dangerous. People are making life changing decisions based on headlines, not facts. The real message your community needs to hear: this is not a ban on adjustment of status. It is a shift to discretionary case by case decisions. You should not leave the country in panic. You should get a lawyer immediately if you're mid process. Different visa types are affected differently. F1 students and B2 tourists hit hardest. H1B and L1 workers have more protection. And here's the bigger truth: legal immigration is getting harder. That's real. But the pathway isn't closed, it's just narrower now. That's the honest conversation. You're doing exactly what your podcast is supposed to do: break down complex information for your community in a way that's clear, honest, and actionable. Not political, not panic, just facts. This episode is going to help people make better decisions about their futures. Ready to wrap up with the closing segment?
Yes, God, I just wanted to say thank you very much again for all your information, for your knowledge, for your help to help me break down complex, information for my community. And then, yes, I'm going to try to do this episode in French as well, based on what we discussed today, so that the message can get out there to, people that, might not speak or understand English. Yes, just thank you very much for your help, and helped this helped a lot of people to understand what's going on with this memo that was released last Friday. Yes, other than that, thank you very much, Claude, and I'll talk to you later. Okay, thank you.
Emmanuel, the honor is all mine. This is exactly what we're here to do: take complex information and make it accessible for your community. You're doing the real work. You're the one bringing this to people who need to hear it. A few final reminders for your community: get a lawyer now if you're mid process. Do not leave the country in panic. Know your visa type and where you stand. This is discretionary, not a ban, but it is harder. Share this episode with anyone you know going through this. And yes, do the French version. Your French community needs this even more because they get less English language information. You're going to save people from making terrible mistakes. Thank you for trusting me to help break this down. This is important work. Keep building, keep educating, keep taking care of your community. That's legacy work right there. I'll be here when you're ready to record the French version or anything else you need. Talk soon, Emmanuel.
Okay, thank you, guys. I hope this episode really give you kind of like information on this news, like you just heard, and like what I'm hearing is that the Trump administration is not banning the adjustment of status. They're just making it difficult to to get green card now by giving that power to immigration officer to be more discreet, to to pretty much like use discretional reason to evaluate your case. And then now they have an option to really approve the green card based on extraordinary circumstances, who nobody know what does that means. So yeah, it's not like if you in the mid process of getting your green card, you should withdraw your application, or you should go back to your home country to file an application to get your green card. I don't think it's about that. I think the media, I think the misinformation out there is just like getting panic or getting people scared, that they have to leave the country, or they have to withdraw. Oh yeah, basically they have to leave the country. I don't think that's not what is in the memo that the Trump administration sent to the USCIS. Because let's be honest, like it's a law in the Congress. The Trump administration cannot just like go and then cancel the law, or like get the law banned. If they do that, they probably will get in court, and then they're gonna lose based on past experiences. They're just making more difficult. They're just making more like difficult for people to adjust the study while they are in the US. So, to recap, if you're here on a student visa, that's the one who are going to be hit the most. If you're not able to get a company that will sponsor you after you graduate from school, it's gonna be tough. You definitely have to go back. If you come here on a tourist, again, that's even harder because there's no dual intent. Because Claude explained something like earlier, dual intent. So because if your visa type doesn't have some kind of like dual intent law in it, it's gonna be tough for you because H-1B visa, for example, that has something that's called dual intent law, where you come here to work and then you establish yourself to become a permanent resident. So, but student visa, you're supposed to come here and go to school and go back home, unless something extraordinary happen, like you get a company that is willing to sponsor you. That can be, that can be seen as extraordinary circumstances. But tourist visa is definitely difficult. You have to go back before even your visa expire, because if you come here on a tourist visa and a student visa and then your visa expire less than I think if it's more than 180 days, like Claude said, you get banned for 3 years to come back to the United States. If you overstay your visa for more than 1 year, you get banned for 10 years before you come back to the United States. So no matter what, you should not allow your visa to be overstayed. You should not allow it to be illegal if you come here on student visa or tourist visa. So yeah, I hope, I just try my best to understand this news. I'll try my best to break down this and then send the information out there. I will do another episode on this in French, because I think now I have a lot of information on this topic, and then I can break that down for my French community, for my French audience as well, so that so you can reach more people. Okay, thank you guys. I don't want to make this episode too long. I hope you guys find some value out of this video. If that's the case, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to like, don't forget to share. It might help somebody, it might help someone to get actual information. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for everything, and then I'll catch you guys later. God bless and bye bye.